Great ideas can only come to life when guided by the right tools. But who should we consider when developing an idea? And how can we organize our thoughts more clearly? Today, I'm going to talk about two powerful thinking and planning tools that will be incredibly useful in creative projects, problem solving, and communication. Stakeholder mapping and concept mapping. Both are essential methods for simplifying complex ideas and making effective decisions. If you're ready, let's start mapping. Stakeholder mapping is a method used to identify all the individuals and groups who have an impact on a project, and to analyze their level of influence and interest in the process. In other words, it is the process of creating a visual representation of the stakeholders who are involved in or affected by the project. Now, let's take a look at how to create and use a stakeholder map. There are 4 key steps you should include in your stakeholder mapping process. 1. Brainstorming. The first step is to think about all the people and groups who might be involved in the project. In this stage, we list every potential stakeholder without judgment. 2. Categorization. Now it's time to group the results of your brainstorming. Are there stakeholders that can be placed into the same category? What name could you give to that category? For example, we separate them into categories like internal stakeholders, team members, managers, and external stakeholders, customers, community, suppliers. This helps us better understand their roles. 3. Prioritization. In the third step, we analyze each stakeholder's level of influence and interest in the project. This allows us to identify who is most important. At this stage, we usually use an influence-interest matrix. The matrix developed by Aubrey L. Mendelow allows you to place your stakeholders into 4 quadrants based on their power and interest. High power, high interest, manage closely. High power, low interest, keep satisfied. Low power, high interest, keep informed. Low power, low interest, monitor. By completing this exercise, you can understand how each stakeholder might impact your project and determine the appropriate method of stakeholder communication for each one. Hey, you're still with me, right? I promise, just one last step. After that, everything will become much clearer with an example. 4. Stakeholder communication. In the final step, we plan how we will communicate with each stakeholder. Who should we update regularly? Who needs close engagement? This ensures that we reach the right people in the right way throughout the project. For example, in a school recycling awareness campaign project, we can look at the 4 stages of stakeholder mapping. First, all stakeholders were listed through brainstorming and then categorized as internal or external. Next, their power and interest were analyzed using the Mendelow matrix to set priorities. Finally, communication methods, such as meetings, posters, emails, and letters, were planned for each group. After exploring the details of stakeholder mapping, we're now moving on to a more intuitive and visual mapping method: concept mapping. Don't worry, it's not confusing. In fact, it's a much easier method to digest. Concept mapping is a technique that allows us to visually organize concepts related to a topic and the relationships between them. This method is especially useful for understanding, learning, and explaining complex ideas. It helps us both visualize information and establish connections between different elements. How is it created? The first step is to write the main topic in the center of the map. Then, we place the related sub-concepts around it. We connect these concepts with lines and write the nature of their relationships on those lines. This way, we can establish cause and effect connections. Now let me briefly wrap up by highlighting the key differences. Stakeholder mapping focuses on analyzing the people involved in a project, while concept mapping is about organizing ideas and showing how they're connected. The first is mainly used in project management, the second in learning and idea development. And yes, You can use both together. For example, in a new project, you can first identify your stakeholders, then use a concept map to shape your ideas. Thanks a lot for watching until the end. Hope you found it helpful.